Joining me now is Douglas Murray, Associate Editor of The Spectator and the best-selling author of The War on the West. Douglas, you wrote a most timely piece this week asking, can anybody in any Democrat-run city honestly say that their lives and their city have improved over the last couple of years under Joe Biden? And that's the question I'm going to ask you, Douglas. Is there a well-run Democrat city?
I'm still waiting for answers on a postcard to this question, Rita. I ask it because whenever I travel across any of the states of America, I always notice one thing in particular, which is that you can recognize the Democrat-run cities. You can recognize that San Francisco is Democrat-run. You can recognize that the great capital of the United States, Washington, D.C., is Democrat-run. You can tell that New York City is Democrat-run. Why? Because there's rampant homelessness, rampant obvious drug addiction on the streets, rampant crime, every imaginable social disorder of a decaying society is visible. It's even the same in cities in red states that happen to be Democrat cities. And I just think this is an astonishing fact. And the Democrats always try to get around this by little exercises in lies, like saying, well, there's equal crime in red states and blue states, ignoring that they're talking about red states with blue cities in them. So I don't think anyone's actually fooled by that. But as I say, the question remains, people can send their answers on a postcard. Is there a single person who can honestly say, if they live in a Democrat city, that their lives are better today than they were a few years ago, and that their city is better off than it was just a few years back? I don't think so. I think the silence is deafening.
And I think New York shows you precisely what you've just described. The crime there is out of control, and this deeply Democrat state might flip Republican. The polls are so close right now, Douglas, and it seems to be the number one issue there is crime.
Yeah, well, you know, the interesting thing with New York is that all New Yorkers say, well, in a pre-Giuliani period, that is, before Giuliani famously came in as mayor some 30 years ago and cleaned up the city. So everyone recognizes that the city is in need of cleaning up. But many residents of the city nevertheless keep voting for Democrats who just aren't going to clean up the city. And, you know, I mean, I'm afraid that as you know, I spent part of my time in New York. I was recently showing some friends around home to show them the pride of New York, and walked out of my building and there was a man shooting up crack heroin in the middle of the day. And I thought, oh dear. Once again, I'm not showing the best of the city, or at least the city isn't showing the best of itself. And that's a sort of normal sight. And it's just tragic. Tragic for the people in question, tragic for the city as a whole.
And you noted in that article that the crime rate surges, quite amazing, 35% jump in murders, larceny 41%, robberies 37%, burglaries 26%. And we're just talking about the past year, those massive increases.
Yeah, that's just a year.
But I want to speak about the World Cup. It's around the corner, the Soccer World Cup, and our Socceroos put out a message calling on Qatar to improve its conditions for migrant workers and change their LGBT laws. It's had less than 6,000 views on YouTube in more than a week. These are empty platitudes because the team's going to go there and compete, which brings me to this beautiful bit of television where former player and leftist moraliser, who's now a commentator, Gary Neville, is called out for his cheap activism and hypocrisy. Have a look.
The others have been very gentle with you, Gary, but I mean,
thanks, Ian.
The elephant in the room is still there. I mean, you're commentating there, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm commentating there.
And what's the defence? Football term.
We're commentating there. Well, you've got a choice, I think, haven't you?
What, going or not going?
Well, my view always has been that you either highlight the issues and challenges in these countries and speak about them, or you basically don't say anything, you stay back home and don't go. And I've always said we should challenge them.
There's another option. You stay at home and highlight the abuses. You don't have to go and take the Qataris' money. not trying to be Tartan, but I mean, it's not a very good defence.
And how is someone like Robbie or the Black Eyed Peas supposed to highlight it? Are they going to make a speech on the stage? Of course they're not.
You can highlight it.
What, during a match?
Well, highlight it during the commentary.
It's the kick-off here in this appalling country's human rights record, and honestly, I think, oh, someone's kicking a ball, but honestly, the amount of immigrant workers who've died, it's a shocker. Oh, it's a goal!
Douglas, people are growing sick of the moral posturing, particularly from celebrities whose actions don't live up to their words.
That's right. It's a very interesting case, this, by the way, because FIFA and the organization that runs World Cup is one of the most corrupt bodies even in the sporting world. I mean, I'm talking grade A level corruption. Of course, Qatar has bribed its way into getting the World Cup. I mean, its climate is totally unsuited for playing football in.
Anything for life.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, they build these stadiums with immigrant workers paid almost nothing. It is, I've been to Qatar myself. It is basically a two-tier class society. There are the Qataris, and then there are the immigrant workers who act as a sort of lower caste and work for them. And I have, by the way, I mean, I've actually seen a little bit of this myself. I did a debate in Doha some years ago, and I said beforehand to the other people who were going to be on the stage, I said, look, whatever our disagreements, I hope we can highlight the fact tonight that our hosts are no angels. And everyone said, oh yeah, absolutely. I was the only person, I'm not trying to just self-aggrandize, I was the only person on stage that evening who did actually say anything critical of the regime, including in front of the Emir's wife, because I just thought it was tasteless not to. You had to say something about the fact that the place you were talking from is, you know, is a deeply unfair and corrupted society. Now, I don't actually believe that means you shouldn't have anything to do with them. I think that, you know, the politics of the world is such that you do have to do, you know, all sorts of things and go to places and speak to people that you might want to hold your nose while speaking to. But it's, as you say, Rita, it's a sanctimony of footballers and others who will take the knee for the next 20 years about non-existent racism in Britain, for instance. I mean, you know, we still have British soccer players taking the knee. I don't know when they're going to stop. When they'll die still on their knees. They'll be doing that, and they will be, I guarantee you, silent about the real human rights abuses going on in Qatar. That's the thing that sticks in so many throats.
Absolutely. And we don't have long. I just want your response to this mass meltdown we're seeing with the Elon Musk taking over Twitter. Today, he banned Kathy Griffin, he said, for impersonating a comedian. But seriously, Douglas, it appears that the Musk era, if we're going to call it that, it's going to see the platform be far more free and transparent. And it is the digital public space. It's important.
It's really important. I hadn't heard that.
Public
Kathy
square,
Griffin.
I should say.
That's very funny about Kathy Griffin. I hadn't heard that. Look, it's important that the public square isn't policed by a secret police force, and that's what Twitter has done in recent years. It's been totally dishonest. You'll have noticed this, Rita, on your account. I've noticed it on mine. They try to muck up your follower numbers. They get people to unfollow you who don't want to unfollow you. They mute things you send out. They did all these games behind the scenes. We've noticed since Musk took over already that some of those games have stopped, that the silent hand that was quietly leaning on some of the levers behind the scenes on Twitter has carefully been lifted. I hope that it is. As I say, the public square cannot be policed by a secret police force who don't reveal who they are. And that was the case with Twitter.
Well said, Douglas.
And I look forward to a better Twitter.
Absolutely. Douglas Murray, always a pleasure to have you. Thanks for joining me tonight.